IGEPHA im Gespräch. Der Podcast der Austrian Self Care Association.
Herzlich willkommen bei IGEPHA im Gespräch, dem Podcast der Austrian Self Care Association. In unserer neuen Podcast-Staffel dreht sich alles um Trends in der Self-Care und am OTC-Markt. Ich freue mich sehr, dass wieder exzellente Studiogäste unserer Einladung gefolgt sind und uns über die neuesten Entwicklungen am Self-Care-Markt informieren werden. Heute darf ich eine herausragende Kennerin der OTC-Industrie auf der ganzen Welt als Gesprächspartnerin begrüßen. Deborah Wilkes ist sicherlich vielen unserer Hörerinnen und Hörer als Gründerin und Herausgeberin der OTC-Toolbox bestens bekannt. Ihr Newsletter versorgt uns regelmäßig mit den neuesten Nachrichten aus der Self Care Branche. Herzlich willkommen, Deborah. Ich bin schon sehr gespannt auf die neuesten Trends am Healthcare-Markt. Bevor wir aber direkt ins Thema einsteigen, möchte ich Deborah kurz vorstellen. Deborah Wilkes lebt in Großbritannien und ist eine bekannte OTC-Branchenexpertin. Mehr als 25 Jahre lang hat sie die globale Verbrauchergesundheitsbranche in Leitartikeln analysiert. Sie war 1993 Mitgründerin des OTC-Bulletin-Newsletters und hat diese Publikation rund 20 Jahre lang herausgegeben. 2013 gründete sie die Website OTC-Toolbox, die sich auf Berichte über die Geschäftsentwicklung und Innovationen in der Self Care Branche spezialisiert hat. OTC-Toolbox veranstaltet jährlich 2 internationale Konferenzen, eine für Geschäftsentwickler und Innovatoren, die andere für Marketing-Experten. Beide Konferenzen fokussieren auf die OTC-Branche. Deborah hat die Consumer Healthcare Industry Awards ins Leben gerufen, mit denen jährlich die besten Projekte, Initiativen, Innovationen und Teams ausgezeichnet werden. Kaum jemand hat so viel Einblick in die aktuellen Entwicklungen am OTC-Markt und ich freue mich, dass uns Deborah heute etwas über ihre Beobachtungen, Analysen und Schlussfolgerungen berichten wird. Hi, Deborah. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to take part, Christina.
You're welcome. Deborah, you recently identified and commented on current trends and transactions in the healthcare industry. One of these trends concerns the spin-off of the consumer healthcare business at international pharmaceutical companies. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, Christina. OTC-Toolbox identified the trends following an analysis of our premium news service and transactions database, and the latter contains details of more than 1,000 consumer healthcare transactions. Now, pharmaceutical companies announcing plans to spin off their consumer healthcare businesses was one of 5 key transaction trends seen over the past 2 years. In June 2021, GlaxoSmithKline confirmed plans to demerge its consumer healthcare business in mid-2022. The demerger is now set to take place in July, and the standalone company will be called Haleon. The separation, which will leave GlaxoSmithKline free to focus on its pharmaceuticals and vaccines businesses, is scheduled to take place around 3 years after GlaxoSmithKline and Pfizer merged their consumer healthcare businesses. GlaxoSmithKline owns 68% of that joint venture, with Pfizer holding the remaining 32%. GlaxoSmithKline's Chief Executive Officer, Emma Walmsley, said the plan was for the separation to take the form of a demerger of at least 80% of GlaxoSmithKline's 68% ownership in that consumer healthcare business to GlaxoSmithKline shareholders. And the plan is subject to shareholder approval. GlaxoSmithKline said shares in the new consumer healthcare business were expected to attain a premium listing on the London Stock Exchange. Now, GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare is the world's leading OTC company. It generated sales of £9.6 billion in 2021, and its power brands include Advil, Centrum, Otrivine, Panadol, Parodontax, Polident, Sensodyne, Theraflu, and Voltaren. GlaxoSmithKline's announcement was followed by news of a proposed spin-off for another of the top 5 global OTC players. In November 2021, Johnson & Johnson announced plans to separate its consumer health business into a new publicly traded company. That separation is expected to be completed in 18 to 24 months. And following separation, the US-based company will focus on its pharmaceutical and medical devices businesses. Johnson & Johnson commented that the planned separation would create two global leaders that are better positioned to deliver improved health outcomes for patients and consumers through innovation and can pursue more targeted business strategies and accelerate growth. The new consumer health company will be a global leader with a portfolio of iconic brands, including 4 $1 billion mega brands and 20 brands with annual sales of more than $150 million. Johnson & Johnson's consumer health business generated sales of $14.6 billion in 2021. A few days after Johnson & Johnson's announcement, another top 5 player, Bayer, said it planned to remain a multi-business organization with a consumer health business. Chief Executive Officer Werner Baumann said Bayer's board of management, endorsed by the supervisory board, had decided to continue the course. This meant developing the company along the 3 pillars that it already had: pharmaceuticals, crop science, and consumer health. And Bayer's view is that what is right for one company is not necessarily right for another. Meanwhile, another top 5 player, Sanofi, is taking a different approach for now. In December 2019, Paul Hudson, who had just taken over as Chief Executive Officer, announced plans to restructure Sanofi into 3 core global business units and a standalone consumer healthcare operation. The French pharmaceutical company said the consumer healthcare business would have integrated research and development and manufacturing functions. He commented, "Our objective for the consumer healthcare business is to unlock value and entrepreneurial energy by growing faster than the market over midterm." Now, currently, all of the leading global OTC players are part of multi-business companies, with the exception of Perrigo. And it remains to be seen how this story will end for GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare and Johnson & Johnson. In January, GlaxoSmithKline revealed it rejected 3 Unilever takeover offers for its consumer healthcare business, including one worth £50 billion. The company said all 3 offers fundamentally undervalued the consumer healthcare business and its future prospects. For its part, Unilever said consumer health was an attractive strategic option, and GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare would be a strong strategic fit. However, Unilever has faced a backlash from its investors, and the company said it will not increase its offer for GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare above £50 billion. And within the past few weeks, Unilever has now ruled out any big acquisitions in the foreseeable future. The company's Chief Executive Officer, Alan Jope, says Unilever is still keen to build its presence in consumer healthcare, but through bolt-on acquisitions rather than mega deals. So back to you, Christina.
Thanks for these interesting insights. I'm very curious how this will evolve in the near future. Another trend you've spotted is the self-care portfolio cleansing. What is happening there, and how are these activities affecting the market, Debbie?
Yes, portfolio streamlining by leading global consumer healthcare players is another big trend. GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare is one of a number of leading global OTC players to streamline its OTC portfolio in recent years. Bayer Consumer Health, Johnson & Johnson and Reckitt have also been busy streamlining their consumer healthcare portfolios. Probably the best example in 2021 was Sanofi Consumer Healthcare, which announced a year ago that it intended to divest 60% of its brands over the next 2 years. The business said the move would reduce its portfolio from more than 250 brands to roughly 100. Julie Van Ungerval, the worldwide head of Sanofi Consumer Healthcare, said the aim was to reduce the complexity of the portfolio by swiftly divesting tail brands. She pointed out that Sanofi Consumer Healthcare's performance had been impacted negatively by product-related issues on many of its tail brands. And in the year since the announcement, Sanofi has struck deals with a number of companies, including Brazil's Hyperpharma and Germany's Stada. Ungerval said recently that Sanofi Consumer Healthcare had now divested and pruned 111 non-core brands, representing a reduction in brands of 40%. And the business has reduced its trademarks by 50% and its domain names by 30%. And this trend has been really important for small and medium-sized companies because it's allowed them to expand their businesses.
Thanks. These insights into the strategic considerations of OTC companies are really fascinating. You also found out that supplement brands are currently changing hands rapidly. Brands under which vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients are sold. What can you tell us about this trend?
Yeah, this trend for acquiring assets in the vitamins, minerals, and supplements category is another really interesting area. It's not new. These assets have been changing hands at a rapid pace for a few years, and plenty of owners have been willing to sell, and plenty of acquirers have been willing to buy. I'd like to highlight one transaction in 2021, which saw Nestlé acquire the Bountiful Company's core vitamins, minerals, and supplements brands from private equity firm KKR for $5.75 billion. The deal, which was announced in April 2021, gave Nestlé the Nature's Bounty and Solgar brands, and the business is now part of Nestlé Health Science. The acquired business generates the vast majority of its sales in North America. Sales in the rest of the world are led by the Solgar brand, which is distributed in more than 50 countries. And commenting on the deal, Nestlé Health Science's Chief Executive Officer, Greg Behar, said there were significant opportunities for geographic growth. He also pointed out that vitamins, minerals, supplements were a key part of Nestlé Health Science's business and had contributed to strong growth acceleration. And apart from that deal, Nestlé has become a major player in vitamins, minerals, and supplements in recent years through a series of other acquisitions. So in December 2017, for example, Nestlé announced it was acquiring the Canadian company Atrium Innovations from a group of investors led by Permira Funds for $2.3 billion in cash. And 2 years later, the company said it was expanding into personalized nutrition by acquiring Persona for an undisclosed sum. Other acquisitions at Nestlé include Noon, Orgain, and Vital Proteins. And Nestlé is just one of the many companies that are getting more into the vitamins, minerals, and supplements market.
Another trend in the OTC business relates to private equity investments. Deborah, what exactly did you find in relation to the impact of private equity?
Thanks, Christina. The influence of private equity firms extends far and wide in the consumer healthcare industry these days, and there are too many recent acquisitions to talk about now. There have been some big acquisitions that involve private equity firms. Two good examples are the purchase of Germany's Stada by Bain Capital and Cinven, and the acquisition of Takeda's Japanese OTC business by Blackstone. And Stada is one of a number of companies now building their consumer healthcare businesses through acquisitions with the support of private equity firms. Other companies include Arcadia Consumer Healthcare, Bridges Consumer Healthcare, Cooper Consumer Health, Havia, Cara Pharma, Wellbeing Consumer Health, and Vision Healthcare. And it's a trend that I believe we will continue to see strongly for many years now.
That's really impressive, I must say. The e-commerce trend is also causing a lot of movement. Progress in personalized medicine is advancing at a rapid pace, and technological progress also inspires the self-care market to constantly come up with new ideas. To what extent does digitalization in all its forms influence transitions in the international healthcare market?
Yeah, the interest in e-commerce, personalization, and other digital technology capabilities is a really fascinating trend. If you take e-commerce, for example, Vision Healthcare, which is now backed by private equity firm Avista Capital Partners, says its strategy is to build a health tech platform for direct-to-consumer sales of a range of consumer products in Europe. And those products, they include vitamins, minerals, and supplements, beauty products, and personal care products. And Vision Healthcare has been extremely active on the acquisition front as it transforms itself into an omnichannel player. Its acquisitions over the past 3 years include Medivital, Sensilab, Vitamaze, and Vitamin Express. Personalization is also high on the acquisition agenda, particularly in the vitamins, minerals, and supplements category. And earlier, I mentioned Nestlé's acquisition of Persona. In 2020, Bayer Consumer Health acquired a majority stake in the US company Care/of, which offers a personalized vitamin service. And Care/of complements Bayer Consumer Health's existing portfolio of vitamins, minerals, and supplements brands, including Berocca, Elevit, One A Day, Redoxon, and Supradim. And it also, importantly, bolsters digital capabilities in the key market of personalized supplements at Bayer. In addition to the deals by Bayer and Nestlé, Nature's Way has acquired full ownership of Bays, the US-based company that maintains truly personalised nutrition starts with a blood test in early 2021. And Nature's Way said the technology and research developments used in the product were a game changer for the vitamin supplement industry. And again, I think this is another trend that's going to carry on for many years to come.
Let me ask you one last question. What are now your recommendations for small and medium-sized self-care companies? What can they do to increase their turnover, to become widely known and to be successful in the long run? What would you say?
I'm going to answer that question focusing specifically in terms of the M&A activity. And it isn't a straightforward question to answer, as what is right for one company is not necessarily right for another. 3 broad points that I think are worth considering are these. 1, you need to get the due diligence right. This is one of the biggest lessons to come out of the consumer healthcare industry in recent years, and some of the biggest players in the industry have suffered from poor due diligence in their acquisitions. It is really important to have a good understanding of what you're acquiring and how you plan to leverage the potential synergies. And that does sound a bit like stating the obvious, but all too often it just doesn't happen. A second observation is really to wait for the right acquisition. Consumer healthcare is a very competitive arena for acquisitions at the moment, and there are a lot of companies seeking acquisitions, and it can be tempting to acquire available assets rather than appropriate assets, as well as feeling under pressure to pay prices that are just too high. You don't have to wait for the perfect acquisition, as that may never come along, but it is important to determine your criteria in advance and stick to them. And again, this does sound like stating the obvious, but all too often it just doesn't happen. And the third point is one really about remembering that people are important in all of this. People are an important part of any acquisition and can contribute to the ongoing success of acquired assets, but they can also leave the business if they don't like what's happening. The relationship between buyer and seller can go sour very quickly, even with the best intentions. And OTC-Toolbox has many news stories about founders remaining with acquired businesses, but then leaving within a few months. Also, the buyer does need to really think about, is this acquired asset worth less without the founder? And on top of these 3 points, one expansion option that we have already talked about is this involvement of private equity firms. And this is proving a successful route for many ambitious consumer healthcare companies. But the way of working may not be right for all consumer healthcare companies. But there is a disciplined approach and access to expertise there that has many advantages.
Wow, thanks a lot, Deborah, for these interesting insights. Thanks for being here today, and all the best luck for your coming projects, and hope to see you soon at our next meetings.
Thank you very, very much, Christina. It was a pleasure.
Liebes Podcast-Publikum, wenn Ihnen diese Folge von IGEPHA im Gespräch gefallen hat, dann hören Sie auch das nächste Mal wieder rein und abonnieren Sie unseren IGEPHA-Podcast, wo Sie den IGEPHA-Podcast finden können, auf unserer Homepage igepha.at und auf allen großen Podcast-Plattformen. Danke fürs Zuhören. Ihre Christina Nageler.